Hey there. It's another beautiful day and I've got my coffee. Let's watch some stuff.
It contained 57 pages instead of the original 284, and even they had undergone editing. But what could Chan Thomas have written about in his work that even 70 years later, the CIA still views as dangerous? The 57 declassified and edited pages from Chan Thomas' book led to one main conclusion. The author was convinced a true apocalypse awaits us. Moreover, it's bound to happen within the upcoming 100 years. Thomas states it'll all start with earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, which will be happening simultaneously all over the planet. But the most terrible thing will come next. Due to a shift in the Earth's crust, waves as high as 2 or 3 kilometers will rise in the ocean. They'll be able to annihilate not only coastal cities and towns, but entire countries. And if such an apocalyptic scenario is really possible, could the recent earthquakes in Turkey and Syria and the volcanic activity on Indonesian islands be precursors to the new flood? But how did Chan Thomas come up with the idea that the Earth would die soon? What exactly is supposed to launch this chain of disasters? The ex-CIA agent was sure the primary trigger would be an interchange of our planet's poles, though not magnetic, but physical. Roughly speaking, the planet's thin crust will slide on the melted mantle so that the North will become the South and vice versa. And they're not Chan Thomas tales, since scientists had developed this hypothesis long before him. In 1953, an American professor, Charles Hapgood, published an article arguing that the Earth's crust is in constant motion because our planet's magnetic field occasionally undergoes changes. When the oscillations are insignificant, Earth's physical poles only shift several kilometers. But in exceptional cases, according to Hapgood, a complete inversion may occur, and the North becomes the South and vice versa. The scientists thought these inversions were responsible for most unexplainable geographic anomalies and even global cataclysms. Hapgood was certain that we're not the first civilization on Earth at all. It's just
So if this was just declassified, I know I did a video about this a couple weeks ago. I know that it's super heavily redacted, what has been released. And I'd like to know what was on those other pages because it's got the CIA spooked. It's got the spooks spooked. But that's creepy that the Earth is going to have a cataclysmic shift. And I've seen other ones where they say in a matter of days, like it's all going to happen like instantaneously, and it'll take days for everything to settle out, and it's going to throw us back into a stone age. And this is how the Earth has reset multiple times before. But I'm interested to learn more about this. So it's going to be a fun ride. Hey, I just want to take a second and thank you so much for joining me for today's coffee talk. If you're having a good time, maybe you'd consider hitting that subscribe button and come back tomorrow because I'm making a new video every day.
Is the world missing an eighth continent? During the mid-1800s, biologists were puzzled when they found similar flora and fauna in both India and Madagascar. This brought many questions, considering that these two places weren't connected at all. Furthermore, the evidence they found were specific to these two countries and weren't found in any of the surrounding countries. Later studies by a man named Ernst Haeckel showed that a 3 billion-year-old mineral called zircon was also found on these countries that were only 2 million years old, indicating that the mineral must have come from a sunken landmass in the Indian Ocean. Thus, the lost continent of Lemuria was born. Well, this is still a hypothesis, but if we look at ancient Tamil history, it is written that their ancestors came from a place called Kamari Kadam, which on ancient maps was conveniently located where the hypothesized Lemuria is. So,
we're going to talk quite a bit over the next few days about the polar shifts and previous resets because it just sparks my fancy right now. So that's what I'm interested in, and that's where my brain is going. So y'all are going along for the ride. As far as Lemuria, its location. If the poles had shifted, it because it says that the crust is going to spin around the earth and while the poles shift, and then what happens is the crust will adjust so that the ice caps are spinning in this manner, because that's where the weight is, right? If the center continues spinning this way, then logically the weight would be on the outside. So does that mean that Lemuria was one of the poles? And then when the shift happened, you know, so it could have been like the ice bridge, how we have the Baltic ice bridge, but I mean that was, in this reset. Baltic ice bridge was in this reset. That could have been the ice bridge at that time. It was Lemuria, and now it's gone. Maybe it was ice, and now it's gone.
Will the world end on May 16th, 2040? According to the Phoenix phenomenon, a major world reset takes place every 138 years. The Phoenix object, named in antiquity, is referenced by Mother Shipton and Nostradamus to the ruin of Sodom and Gomorrah and the Great Flood of the Bible, and reappears in the sky every 138 years. The last Phoenix event happened in May 1902, when cities around the world reported the blackening of the sky and reddish rain blanketed the earth. This coincides with mud flood researchers, who claim the last reset was in the early 1900s, which was erased from the historical record. Is this just another conspiracy theory, or...
That's another date to add to my apocalypse list. So this year we're supposed to have a fake alien invasion. 2027 we're supposed to have an actual alien invasion, and now 2040 we're supposed to have a mud flood reset. And I know that they say the mud flood is what erased the Tartarian Empire, and there are other bits of evidence about floods in certain areas of the world as well in that time. But there's so many dates and so many years for this and so many years for that. It's too many stuff. It's a lot of things, but I'm gonna write that one down now too, and we'll see what happens. So we got a couple minutes until it gets here.
Hello there. So, while ago I uploaded a video talking about the allegations made by the conspiracy theorist Linda Moulton Howe on a terrifying incident that took place in a Japanese robotics lab where 4 autonomous robots killed 29 scientists before they could finally shut them down by dismantling them completely.
At a top robotics company in Japan this week, 4 robots being developed for military applications killed 29 humans in the lab. And they did it by shooting what he called metal bullets. I didn't know there was any other kind. The scariest part is that lab workers deactivated 2 of the robots, took apart the 3rd, but the 4th robot began restoring itself and somehow connected to an orbiting satellite to download information about how to rebuild itself even more strongly than before. And this next sentence is a quote. I'm writing this down. I've been doing this for years. This is serious shit, Linda, but you're never going to hear about this in the news.
That sounds like the opening scene to the next Terminator movie. I don't think that's real. Like she said, you're never going to see this in the news, but I totally think something like that, we would have definitely seen anything about it, any kind of information. Oh, we want to avoid this happening again. There would be news about it. I don't know why I'm so dead set that if something were to happen like this, the people would know. Everything is kept a secret. So yeah, but still, I don't buy it. I don't think it's real. If you know if it's real or not, drop me a note. Let me know. Did it actually happen? I don't buy it.
You're about to hear one of the most disturbing true stories on the internet. In 1921, a German farmer woke up to find a deep set of footprints leading from the forest right up to his back door. Whoever had come to his house had not left yet. After making sure it wasn't just his family, he searched everywhere on his property and his house everywhere, and he could not determine who made the prints or where they went. A few weeks later, his maid abruptly quit, saying that every time she's alone in the house, she hears demonic voices in the attic. Shortly thereafter, he and his family start to hear the voices too. When no one's heard from them in a couple days, the neighbors go over to check and they find them in the barn. One by one, each of the family members made their way down to the barn where they were systematically murdered and stacked in the corner. To this day, no one knows who or what is responsible for this crime.
Whoever did that had some serious patience. Weeks this person was living in their house, and then one at a time took them all out. That's crazy. That's a good story. I like that story. It's sick. That was good.
Every culture has a flood myth. Abrahamic religions have Noah's flood. The Mayans have the Huracan flood, where the word hurricane comes from. Ancient Hawaiians have the Nu'u flood. The Sumerians wrote about a flood in Gilgamesh. Europe, Asia, Pacific Islanders, and native tribes from all over America. They all talk about a great flood that cleansed the earth so civilization could start again. Now, one myth is just folklore. Two myths are a coincidence. 4D flood myths? This starts to look less like a myth and more like actual history. Now, on this channel, we typically associate great floods with the end of the last ice age, the Younger Dryas. And core samples provide solid evidence that this happened. But what's interesting is, Thomas said the last great flood wasn't 11,500 years ago, but 6,500 years ago. Now, in the 1960s, there was very little, if any, proof of this. But a few years ago, archaeologists found evidence of the Gunyu flood myth in China. Evidence of a great flood has been found in the Mediterranean and in the Black Sea. These discoveries put the flood between 6,500 and 7,000 years ago, more recent than the Younger Dryas, and right when Thomas says it happened. But global floods aren't controversial. We know they happened. What is controversial is the claim that advanced civilizations existed before each of the floods. Mainstream archaeology and paleontology say the first civilization emerged in Mesopotamia 6,500 years ago. But what if that was just the last reboot? We look at the erosion around the base of the Great Sphinx, we see patterns that were formed by running water, vast amounts of water moving at tremendous speeds. But if this is water erosion, that means the Sphinx was created before the last flood 6,500 years ago, which is before the emergence of the Egyptian civilization. Archaeologists hate that idea.
There's a lot of good points in there as far as the floods, those being prevalent in a lot of religions. So it had to start somewhere. Maybe there was like a person left behind after the flood, because a lot of people are if what is supposed to happen, if what is hypothesized actually did happen, as far as the torrents of water, like the ocean just wipes everything out, right? Only some people will remain. And those people become the ones that, repopulate, and they tell the story of what happened. And it all starts with a flood. So I think that's fantastic. Oh, there were people, and then there was a flood, and then there was the minimal left. And then that's how the story is propagated. I think that's a great explanation. It makes a lot of sense. So as far as there being water damage to the Sphinx, its surrounding stone, that's pretty evident that there was water when or after those were built, in order to erode in that manner. So that's why the archaeologists don't like it, because they want to say the ancient Egyptians had built them, but I don't believe they did. I believe they were here before the ancient Egyptians, and there was a flood, and that took people out, and that's what happened, and that's why we don't have that technology. But as far as the dates, I'm just getting so many different dates. There's the Younger Dryas, which was 11,800 years ago. Now there's this one that's 6,500 to 7,000 years ago. And then there was 130 some odd years ago. There's too many dates. There's just too many dates for when everything happened. But I guess that's just my problem, because I'm trying to link all of these theories together when they're supposed to stand on their own. And that's going to be the end of it for me today. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Here's my cutting room floor. 3, 2, 1. So we're going to talk a lot, but as far as Lemuria, as far as Lemuria, and then the ocean is supposed to be like this big, huge wall and just mow everything down. So perhaps Lemuria was wiped out in the last reset. And that's where all of the mud came from. Oh, that's how the mud flood was made. Lemuria turned into mud and then it covered all of this other stuff because the water washed over it so fast. Yeah, that sounds like it would happen. Then the earth, right? It's supposed to it does this. It does this. This is what the earth does. Then it goes whoosh. I think we're supposed to have our polar shift before that even gets here. So nobody will be here anyway. There's nothing. There won't be anything left to worry about that. But it's supposed to spin at the outside, or it's how it goes on top. But if the poles flip over and then this goes, I need to watch more stuff. I need to learn more things about this. But this is pretty interesting things, except for the billionaires in their bunkers. I mean, they're going to be tossed about a bit, but they'll be fine. They just need padded walls. I haven't done any research on it. I'm pretty sure if I did, I'd learn the answer right away. I wonder if, like, when the poles shifted, when everything happened, if the pyramids were actually in the north. No, that wouldn't work. That's simple. And then that's it. We're done. I really don't know.